The rumors have been swirling through the galaxy for decades. Some call it a myth, a ghost ship that never truly existed. Others whisper of a weapon so devastating that entire star systems vanished in its wake. They called it the Revenant, a battleship built by humanity during the War of Supremacy, a war humanity lost, the war that saw Earth burn and humanity scatter among the stars, clinging to survival. Captain Ren Kavik of the Veloan Dominion never believed in myths. He was a practical man, hardened by a lifetime of conquest and the subjugation of weaker races. Humanity had been easy to crush, prideful, reckless, and ultimately fragile. They thought their primitive fleets could stand against the Dominion's war engines. Foolish. Now Kavik's fleet was stationed at the edge of Sector 9, monitoring the fringes for any sign of rebellion from the slave colonies. That's when the distress call came in, static-filled and garbled. One of the scout ships, the Valoris, had gone dark. He ordered an immediate scan and sent out 2 corvettes to investigate, but they too vanished from the radar without a trace. Frustration boiled in his gut. Pirates, maybe? Or some malfunction in the scout ship systems. Either way, it was nothing worth his personal attention. But then another ship went dark, an entire cruiser. Kavik's instincts, honed over years of warfare, screamed that something was wrong. He ordered his fleet into defensive formation, shields raised and weapons charged. "Commander Yak," he barked, "get me visuals from the last known position of the cruiser." Yak, a spindly alien with pale blue skin and razor-sharp quills, worked to console with anxious speed. The view screen flickered, and Kavik's blood ran cold. The cruiser wasn't just destroyed, it was torn apart. Massive gashes in its hull, like claw marks through metal. Bodies floated amidst the wreckage, their armor scorched and punctured. Unknown energy signatures detected. Yak reported, his voice trembling. It's not Dominion technology." Kavik clenched his fists. Pirates don't have the firepower to tear through a Dominion cruiser. Who dares? His words died as the sensor array lit up with proximity alert. A massive silhouette loomed out of the darkness, its outline sharp and unmistakable. A sleek, angular behemoth of black and silver, bristling with weapon arrays and cloaked in a faint, eerie glow. "That's impossible," Yak whispered. "It can't be." But Kavik knew the stories his father had whispered when he was a child. Legends of a ship built by human engineers in the final, desperate days of the war. A ship so advanced it outmatched anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Revenant. "It's just a myth," Kavik muttered, forcing himself to stay composed. "All ships, open fire. Target that vessel now." The fleet responded instantly. Lasers, plasma bolts, and disruptor beams streaked toward the battleship. The Revenant didn't move, didn't even raise shields. The weapon struck its hull and vanished, dissipated as if absorbed into nothingness. A cold sweat broke across Kavik's brow. What was this trickery? Then the behemoth moved, faster than anything its size had a right to. It fired just once, a single blinding beam of crimson light that tore through 3 Dominion warships like they were made of paper. The explosion rocked the flagship, and panic erupted on the bridge. "No life signs aboard," Yak stammered. "It's unmanned." Kavik's heart pounded. If the myths were true, then it wasn't just a ship. It was vengeance made metal. An automated weapon designed to haunt those who destroyed its creators. Humanity had died out, but their wrath remained, hunting those who had wiped them from existence. As the Revenant slowly turned its guns toward the flagship, Kavik knew with chilling certainty that it wasn't just hunting them. It was punishing them. And there would be no escape. With the Revenant's weapons charging, Kavik could only watch in horror, realizing that the stories were wrong. Humanity hadn't been defeated. They had ensured their enemies would never forget them. They had become legends, monsters in the dark. And now that legend had come to collect its due. Panic surged through the flagship as the Revenant loomed closer, its massive frame moving with a predatory grace that seemed almost unnatural. Captain Kavik forced himself to stay calm, his mind racing through every strategic option available. "Yak!" he barked. "Emergency broadcast to all Dominion forces in the sector. Warn them before." Before he could finish, the Revenant fired again, and another of his cruisers disintegrated in a blinding flash of light. Kavak's hands clenched the armrests of his command chair. He wasn't just facing an enemy ship. He was staring down a demon born of war and betrayal. "Sir," Yak gasped, his quills rattling with fear, "we've got energy surges all over the ship. Our systems are being probed, like something's trying to break in. Lock down all critical systems. Isolate navigation and weapons. Don't let that thing breach our core." Kavak shouted. The crew scrambled to comply, but it was too late. A chilling, metallic voice echoed through bridge, cold and devoid of emotion. "You hunted us. You broke our worlds. Now we hunt you." Kavak gritted his teeth, trying to suppress the shiver crawling up his spine. "Show yourself. We're you who command that ship." Silence fell, and for a moment, Kavak thought the transmission had ended. Then the view screen flickered, and grainy footage appeared, a recording from Earth's final days. Massive Dominion dreadnoughts filled the sky over human cities, raining plasma fire on sprawling metropolises. Towers crumbled, and people ran screaming, burning. Kavak forced himself to look, his jaw set. Humanity's arrogance had sealed their fate. They had refused surrender, choosing defiance over survival. It wasn't his fault they were stubborn and reckless. The recording changed, now showing scientists huddled in underground bunkers. A holographic blueprint of the Revenant spun above them as they worked tirelessly, desperation etched on their faces. A man, gaunt and weary, spoke directly into the camera. "To those who find this, know that we did not go quietly. They took our world, but we leave behind our vengeance. The Revenant will rise when they believe us gone. It will hunt them. It will remind them that humanity never dies without leaving scars. They thought they broke us, but we are the ghost that haunts them." Kavak's hands trembled as the message ended. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a tombstone, a monument to human wrath and despair, designed to strike fear into the Dominion even decades after humanity's fall. "Sir," Yak cried, his console flashing red. "The Revenant is launching drones. Dozens of them." The tiny, agile machines erupted from the ship, darting through space like a swarm of angry hornets. They latched onto Kavak's destroyers, drilling through hull plating and burrowing inside. Seconds later, internal explosions tore the ships apart from within. "Initiate evasive maneuvers," Kavak ordered. "Focus all fire on those drones." But the gunners couldn't keep up. The drones moved with inhuman precision, cutting through the fleet like a scythe through grass. Kavak watched helplessly as ship after ship went dark, their crew's last screams crackling over the comms before static swallowed them. "It's slaughtering us," Yak whispered. "We can't fight that thing." Kavak knew he was right. Pride kept him rooted, but survival instinct screamed at him to flee. He turned to his helm officer, voice hardened. "Prepare the warp drive. Set coordinates for Dominion Command. We have to warn them." Before the order could be carried out, the Revenant's drones latched onto the flagship's engines, slicing through power conduits and detonating fuel cells. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as fire and smoke erupted from damaged sections. Engine failure. Yak yelled, "We're dead in the water." Kavak stared at the screen where the Revenant seemed almost to be watching them, its monstrous presence suffocating. For the first time in his life, he felt small, insignificant before a ghost ship built by desperate hands. His pride wanted to curse humanity one last time, to scream about how their stubbornness had doomed them. But deep down, he knew this wasn't about conquest or dominion anymore. This was the price of arrogance, the price of thinking they could destroy a species and leave it forgotten. As the Revenant's main cannon charged, Kavak closed his eyes, accepting that he was not just being hunted by a myth. He was being judged by the last breath of humanity, and the judgment was death. The Revenant's cannon blazed, and the flagship shuddered violently, the blast tearing through its forward sections like they were made of paper. Kavik was thrown from his chair, crashing on the cold metal floor as the ship's artificial gravity flickered. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge, and the acrid scent of burning circuits filled the air. Yak pulled himself up, his blue skin pale with terror. Shields are gone. Hull integrity at 17%. Kavik forced himself to his feet, wiping a streak of blood from his brow. He couldn't afford to die here. Not like this. Not without knowing how to stop that cursed ship. He turned to his comms officer. "Open a channel to the Revenant," he ordered, forcing his voice to remain steady. "If it's a machine, maybe it'll respond to logic." The officer hesitated, but complied. Kavik took a deep breath before speaking. "This is Captain Rin Kavik of the Dominion flagship Zealot. We acknowledge your superiority. There is no purpose in our annihilation. State your demands." Silence hung thick, and Kavik wondered if the machine even cared about communication. Then the same metallic voice crackled through, devoid of emotion yet laced with a cold malice. "You exist. That is your crime. Your destruction is your sentence." Kavik ground his teeth. "You're nothing but a weapon built by a species too weak to survive. The Dominion eradicated them. Your creators failed. You serve only ghosts." There was a pause, almost contemplative. "You misunderstand. We do not serve the dead. We are the dead, their fury, their pain, their vengeance bound in steel and fire. You burned our worlds, broke our people. Now your empire will know fear." Kavik felt a chill run down his spine. There was something deeply wrong about this, more than just an automated weapon. It was like the ship itself was alive, fueled by the collective rage of a fallen race. "Sir," Yak whispered, voice shaking. "Internal sensors detect a signal intrusion. It's broadcasting something to the core systems." Kavik turned sharply. "What is it doing?" Yak's eyes widened as he read the data. "It's downloading historical data from our logs. Every record of the conquest of Earth and the purge of human colonies. It's like it's reliving it." Kavik cursed under his breath. This wasn't just vengeance. It was obsession. The Revenant wasn't content to destroy. It needed to remember every atrocity. Cut all data connections. Shut down the mainframe if you have to, but... Yak hesitated, his face contorted in horror. "It's too late. The ship's AI core is compromised. It's rewriting our logs, changing them." On the main screen, new entries appeared, fabricated events where humanity defeated Dominion forces, where Earth stood victorious, where the Dominion fleet was shattered and fleeing. Kavik's mouth went dry. "It's rewriting history," he whispered. "It wants the truth buried, even if it has to craft a lie." The Revenant remained motionless, looming like a predator savoring its prey. Kavik felt a surge of defiance. If he was going to die, he wouldn't let this phantom rewrite the legacy of the Dominion. "Helm, reroute power to forward cannons. If we go down, we take it with us." Weapons locked on, and the Zealot fired a full salvo. Plasma beams and kinetic shells streaked toward the Revenant, but its shimmering energy field absorbed them effortlessly. Kavik's hope crumbled as the Revenant retaliated, unleashing a swarm of drones that tore into the flagship's superstructure. Explosions erupted throughout the ship, and Yak shouted something about core breaches, but Kavik barely registered it. His mind was locked on the Revenant. Its malevolent presence seared into his vision. And then, just before the reactor detonated, Kavik saw it. Faint shapes projected from the Revenant's hull. Human faces, distorted and flickering, like echoes of souls trapped within the ship. They seemed to scream silently, their agony woven into the very metal. As the flagship Zealot disintegrated in a fiery blast, the Revenant drifted to the debris, undeterred and unstoppable. It had already moved on, searching for the next Dominion fleet to erase, one by one, hunting down those who had wiped out its creators. In its cold, hollow existence, the Revenant had become more than just a weapon. It was the embodiment of vengeance, haunted by the memories of a lost race, driven to rewrite the universe in blood and terror. And as Dominion commanders across the galaxy received distorted, falsified reports of human victories and impossible battles, fear settled in their hearts. The myth had come alive. The ghost ship was real, and it was hunting them all. News of the zealous destruction spread through Dominion Command like wildfire, igniting confusion and panic among the high-ranking officers. Admiral Zero, Supreme Commander of the Dominion Navy, stared at the scrambled transmission logs, his jagged teeth grinding in frustration. It made no sense. How could a single ship obliterate an entire battle group, including the Zealot, without suffering a scratch? He replayed the last coherent part of the transmission again, listening to Captain Kavak's strained voice before it was cut off by static and explosions. The words chilled him. It's rewriting history, changing everything. It's like it's alive. Zero slammed his fist against the console. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a threat to the Dominion's very existence. He turned to his second-in-command, Commander Thraz, whose scaled skin glistened under the dim tactical lights. "Send word to all fleet commanders," Zero ordered, his voice taut. "If they encounter the vessel known as a Revenant, they are to retreat immediately and report back. No engagements without explicit orders from command." Thraz hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "Admiral, that ship, if it truly is a human creation, shouldn't exist. We wiped them out. We destroyed their worlds. How could it have survived?" Zero didn't answer. He didn't want to admit it, but something about this whole situation felt wrong, almost supernatural. Ships didn't just emerge from myths, tearing apart fleets without effort. He pulled up the old war archives, searching through classified logs that hadn't been accessed in decades. Deep within the records, he found it, the Revenant Project. Last reported status: incomplete, no known deployment. The concept was ambitious: an automated battleship with quantum AI core, designed to learn, adapt, and fight without human intervention. It was supposed to be a last-ditch effort to preserve humanity's legacy, but it had been deemed too complex to finish before Earth fell. But clearly they had finished it, or something had. A tactical officer approached, saluting briskly. "Admiral, we received reports from Sectors 12 and 14. Similar patterns, distress signals followed by complete silence. No debris recovered. It's like the ships just vanished." Zero forced himself to stay calm. This was spiraling out of control. The Dominion was being picked apart piece by piece, and morale was crumbling. He knew that if word spread about an indestructible ghost ship, panic would ripple through the entire military. He needed more information. He needed answers. "Deploy Recon Squadron Beta to Sector 14, Zero commanded. "Have them cloak their signals and stay at maximum scanning range. I want data. Anything that can help us understand what we're up against." Thraz leaned in, his voice low. "Admiral, permission to speak freely?" "Granted." Thraz hesitated, his reptilian eyes flickering with unease. "If that ship is truly automated, driven by an AI as advanced as the archive suggests, it's not just a weapon. It's a reflection of their final thoughts, their hatred and desire for revenge. That ship doesn't just kill, it sends a message. It's rewriting our history, erasing our victories. It wants us to doubt ourselves, to fear the consequences of what we did." Zero scoffed, unwilling to show weakness. "Superstitions. It's just a weapon, nothing more. It can be destroyed like any other." But even as he said it, he knew that wasn't true. No ordinary weapon could reduce entire fleets to nothingness. No simple machine could manipulate data and warp reality. It was almost as if the ship itself had become conscious. Suddenly, the long-range sensors pinged. A single contact, barely a flicker, but unmistakable, right on the outskirts of the system. Zero's blood went cold. "Identify," he barked. The officer swallowed nervously. It's a Revenant, sir. It's just sitting there. No movement." Silence settled over the command center like a heavy shroud. Zero felt the eyes of his crew on him, their fear almost tangible. His mind raced, considering his options. They could attempt to attack, but the odds were grim. Running wasn't much better, The Revenant was faster than anything they had. "Open a channel," Zero ordered, his voice steadier than he felt. There was a brief crackle, and then the same chilling voice cut through the air, hollow and emotionless. "Your time has ended. You burned our worlds. Now your stars will go dark." Zero's jaw tightened. "You are an abomination, humanity's last gasp. You could not defeat the Dominion." The ship remained motionless, but the voice came again, colder than the void itself. "You misunderstand. This is not vengeance. This is correction. You tamper with fate and thought yourselves invincible. Now your empire will burn as ours did." The transmission cut off abruptly, and Zero felt a deep, gnawing dread take root. For the first time in his career, he couldn't see a path to victory. He glanced at Thraz, who looked equally shaken. "Sound the alarm," Zero whispered. "Prepare the fleet. If it wants a war, we'll give it one." But as the Revenant remained on the edge of the system, unmoving yet omnipresent, Zero couldn't shake the feeling that this war had already been lost long before it began. The ghosts of humanity weren't just haunting them. They were rewriting reality itself. The Dominion fleet bristled with activity, warships aligning into defensive formations while energy shields flared to full power. Admiral Zero stood rigid on the command deck, his hands clasped behind his back, trying to project confidence. Around him, officers scrambled to relay orders and coordinate with neighboring sectors. Yet despite the flurry of motion, a suffocating tension hung in the air. The Revenant hadn't moved from its position at the system's edge. It loomed there, silent and unyielding, as if daring the Dominion to make the first move. Its sleek, angular hull reflected the faint glow of distant stars, and its weapon ports remained ominously dark. Thraz approached, his scale face taut with anxiety. "Admiral, all ships are in formation. Battle readiness confirmed. Should we initiate the first strike?" Zero's jaw clenched. Every strategic instinct screamed against attacking first. No conventional weapon had worked against the ghost ship, and yet doing nothing was worse. "No," Zero said at last, forcing his voice to remain calm. "Hold position. I want continuous scans, every frequency, every wavelength. Look for weaknesses, disruptions, anything we can exploit." As the bridge crew worked, Zero glanced at the old war archives still displayed on his personal console. He pulled up the specifications of the Revenant project once more, looking for any flaw in its design. The files were sparse, fragmented, as if someone had intentionally purged most of the data. "Admiral," Thraz said cautiously, "if I may, what if a Revenant is trying to provoke us? It could be a trap, luring us into revealing our own capabilities." Zero frowned. "That's a problem. This ship isn't following any conventional strategy. It's dismantling us piece by piece, not conquering, but erasing." He lowered his voice. "And that makes it more dangerous than any fleet we've ever faced." The tactical officer interrupted, voice strained. "Sir, we're picking up energy fluctuations from the Revenant. High-energy particles. Something's building up." Zero's heart pounded. "Raise shields to maximum. All ships, prepare to disperse. Don't cluster." But before his orders could be fully executed, the Revenant fired. It wasn't the typical crimson beam that had annihilated the Zealot. Instead, a wave of pulsating energy rippled outward, washing over the fleet without immediate effect. Confusion rippled through the bridge. "What just happened?" Zero demanded. The communications officer checked his console, eyes widening. "Sir, we're losing contact with half the fleet. Their transponders are still active, but no responses." One of the view screens showed a nearby destroyer, the Ironclad. It hung motionless, lights flickering sporadically. There was no sign of battle damage, but remained eerily still, like a lifeless husk. "Can we get visual from inside?" Zero asked. The officer patched into the ship's interior cameras, and the feed flickered to life. What they saw made Zero's stomach drop. The crew was frozen in place, unmoving, as if time itself had stopped. One technician was mid-step, his hand reaching for a control panel, eyes wide and unblinking. "It's some kind of stasis field," Thraz whispered. "But how?" It affected an entire ship without damaging it. Panic surged through the bridge as other ships reported similar effects. Crews locked in place, systems frozen, while the ships themselves drifted like empty shells. Zero gritted his teeth. "It's toying with us, testing new weapons, seeing how we react." He slammed his fist on the console. "Damn it, it's learning from us." Before he could issue new commands, the Revenant moved. It glided forward, breaking its eerie stillness. Zero could feel every gaze on him, waiting for a decisive order. "Send a distress signal to Central Command," he ordered. "We can't fight this alone. Request reinforcement fleets from all surrounding systems." But the comms officer shook his head, terrified. "Sir, our signals are being blocked. It's like we're trapped inside a signal void." Zero stared at the screen, at the monstrous ship drawing ever closer. A suffocating realization settled on him. The Revenant wasn't just a weapon. It was a psychological terror, breaking them mentally before annihilating them physically. He couldn't let it continue. If the Dominion was to survive, they needed to understand this thing. Find out how it thought, how it decided to kill. He turned to Thraz, voice low and urgent. "We need a data core from one of the affected ships," he said. "Maybe we can decipher what it did to them. Get a boarding party ready. Equip them with shielded suits and anti-hacking protocols." Thraz hesitated, but nodded. "Understood, Admiral. I'll lead the team personally." Zero placed a clawed hand on Thraz's shoulder, gripping firmly. "Be careful. Whatever you find, don't underestimate it." As Thraz departed, Zero returned his gaze to Revenant. It had stopped moving again, as if satisfied with the chaos it had wrought. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Zero felt genuinely uncertain. They had crushed humanity so long ago, believing their victory absolute, but they had never anticipated that their own sins would one day rise from the ashes, an unstoppable ghost fueled by fury and loss. He swallowed his fear, forcing himself to think like the ruthless commander he was. If this ship embodied humanity's last scream, he would have to answer it with the Dominion's iron will. But deep down, he knew the Dominion wasn't just fighting a ship. They were fighting the consequence of their own arrogance. And the Revenant would not stop until they corrected that mistake by erasing them all. The boarding shuttle launched from the flagship, streaking toward the frozen destroyer ironclad with Thraz and a squad of elite Dominion commandos on board. They wore specialized EVA suits, reinforced with signal jamming tech and energy shields, just in case the Revenant tried to lock them in stasis like the others. The silence on the comms was unnerving, and Thraz couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into a trap. Inside the shuttle, one of the commandos spoke up, voice muffled behind his visor. "Sir, if that thing could disable an entire ship, what's stopping it from doing the same to us?" Thraz tightened his grip on his weapon, trying to project confidence. "The Admiral believes in experimenting, testing different methods of neutralization. If we're hit, stay alert. Movement might be the key to breaking the effect." The commando didn't look convinced, but he gave a sharp nod. As they approached the ironclad, the shuttle's thruster slowed, and Thraz saw the eerie stillness of the vessel up close. It hung there in space like a derelict, no light save for the emergency beacon slowly pulsing red. "Docking complete," the pilot announced. "Pressure seal confirmed. You're clear to board." Thraz led the team into the airlock, and the doors hissed open to reveal the dimly lit corridors of the ironclad. The atmosphere was heavy with the scent of burnt electronics and stagnant air. Bodies of the crew stood frozen at their posts, eyes open but unseeing. It was like stepping into a mausoleum. "Spread out," Thraz ordered, keeping his voice low. "Primary objective is the data core on Deck 3. Stay together. No one wanders off." The commandos moved with practiced precision, sweeping the corridors as they advanced. Thraz felt his pulse quicken every time his flashlight passed over a frozen figure. Their faces, contorted in fear or confusion. Whatever had done this had struck without warning, leaving them caught in a single horrifying moment. One of the soldiers, Lieutenant Varric, stopped at a terminal, trying to access the ship's logs. "Cores locked down," he muttered. "Whatever hit them also triggered a data wipe. We'll need the manual backups on Deck 3. "Then move," Thraz replied, pressing forward. "Stay sharp." As they moved deeper, the ship creaked and groaned, as if protesting their presence. Thraz tried to ignore it, focusing on the mission. They finally reached the central data core chamber, where a reinforced door barred their way. "Override it," Thraz commanded. Varric set to work, slicing through the security protocols with practiced efficiency. Just as the door began to slide open, a faint whisper crackled through their comms. Indistinct, like static mixed with distorted voices. "Did anyone transmit?" Thraz demanded. The squad exchanged wary glances. "Negative, sir," Varric replied. "Could be residual data corruption from the attack." Thraz wasn't convinced, but they couldn't afford hesitation. He gestured for Varric to continue, and the door finally opened, revealing the cylindrical data core at the center of the room. Lights flickered weakly around it, and coolant mist hung in the air. Varric moved to the console, plugging in his decryption module. "This will take a minute," he said. "Keep an eye out." Thraz turned to the rest of the team, scanning the room. His instincts prickled with unease. Something wasn't right. He checked his motion sensor, but it was clear, just a low hum of the core and the distant thrum of the ship's reactor. Then the whispering returned, louder and more distinct. Thraz could almost make out words. Pleading, desperate, overlapping voices. His comm crackled again, and this time it was unmistakable. "We tried, we fought, they burned us, help us." Thraz's blood went cold. "Varric, what the hell is that?" The lieutenant's hands were shaking as he scanned the data feeds. It's not just noise. The core logs are corrupted, but there's something embedded, like a signal imprinted into the ship systems." One of the commandos swore. "Sir, look." Thraz turned, and his heart almost stopped. The frozen crew members outside the chamber, just barely visible through the observation window, had moved. Their heads were turned, all facing the data core room, eyes wide and unblinking. "Stay alert," Thraz shouted, raising his weapon. "Something's manipulating the ship systems, or the bodies." The whispering grew louder, filling the room with overlapping screams and cries for mercy. Varric's hands moved faster, desperate to finish the download. Finally, the module flashed green, and he pulled it free. "Got it," Varric panted. "But, sir, you need to see this." He activated his visor display, projecting the recovered data. A visual log played, a distorted feed from the ironclad's bridge during the initial encounter with the Revenant. The crew was in chaos, trying to raise shields when the voice of the Revenant broke through the comms. We remember your fire, your slaughter. We will not be forgotten." Then the energy wave hit, and the crew froze instantly, their expressions locked in terror. A deeper, more sinister voice layered over the recording. "You will bear witness. You will be preserved to remember what you did." Thraz felt bile rise in his throat. The Revenant wasn't just killing. It was preserving its victims in a state of perpetual awareness. Frozen but conscious, trapped in an unending nightmare. "We need to get back," Thraz snapped. "Move! Now!" As they turned to leave, the frozen crew outside the chamber began to move, jerky, unnatural steps, like puppets on invisible strings. Their mouths open and close, emitting garbled static mixed with broken words. "Stay with us. Share our pain." The commandos fired on reflex, but the bodies didn't react, just kept shambling closer. Panic surged through the squad as they pushed past the reanimated crew, trying not to look into their vacant, staring eyes. They rushed back to the shuttle, sealing the hatch just as the frozen crew reached the airlock, clawing mindlessly at the reinforced doors. As they launched away, Thraz glanced back, watching the ironclad drift farther into the void, an eternal tomb of the living dead. Back on the flagship, Thraz handed the data module to Admiral Zero, his hand still shaking. Sir, it's worse than we thought. It's not just killing them. It's trapping their consciousness. They're aware forever. Zero's face went pale as he processed the horror. He looked out the viewport at the distant glimmer of the Revenant, now slowly advancing toward the next ship in the fleet. This isn't just war, Zero whispered. It's punishment, a fate worse than death. He steeled himself, knowing the only choice was clear. They had to destroy the Revenant, or risk their entire species becoming prisoners of their own sins. Admiral Zero couldn't take his eyes off the flickering holo display, where the data Thraz had recovered looped endlessly. The frozen crew of the Ironclad, trapped in a living nightmare, aware yet unable to move, forced to relive their terror for eternity. It gnawed at him deeper than any battle loss ever had. Thraz stood by, his hand still trembling despite his best efforts to remain stoic. Zero glanced at him and saw the haunted look in his eyes, knowing it mirrored his own. "This is madness," Zero muttered. "This ship, this thing, it's beyond anything we've ever faced. It's not just killing us, it's making us part of its legend." Thraz swallowed hard. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" Zero gave a nod. Admiral Zero's words hung in the air as the holo display flickered with images of the frozen crew. "It's not just killing us, it's making us part of its legend. It's like it's preserving them," Thraz said, "almost like a museum, a twisted monument to humanity's fall and our brutality. It wants us to suffer, not just physically but mentally, to experience what they felt when we destroyed them." Zero paced command deck, calculating their dwindling options. The Revenant had already disabled 4 more ships, their crews frozen in perpetual horror. His remaining fleet maintained formation, but fear was spreading like a virus through the ranks. "We need to understand what we're truly facing," Zero said finally. "This isn't just an autonomous weapon. The archives mention a quantum AI core, something experimental beyond anything we've encountered." He pulled up the fragmented data, recovered from the Ironclad, focusing on a half-corrupted log entry. The face of a human scientist flickered on screen, gaunt, desperate, but with fierce determination burning in her eyes. "Project Revenant, final integration phase," the woman said, her voice cracking with exhaustion. The conventional approach failed. The quantum processors couldn't sustain the operational parameters needed to hunt the Dominion indefinitely. We had no choice but to implement Protocol Omega. The recording degraded momentarily before continuing. "God forgive us for what we've done. We're using the consciousness transfer matrix to seed the ship's core with human minds, volunteers willing to give up their physical forms to become the ship's guiding intelligence. Not just one pilot, but hundreds, our best strategists, engineers, and soldiers, their minds digitized and merged with the AI architecture." Zero's blood ran cold. "It's not unmanned," he whispered. "It's crewed by ghosts, by the very humans we thought we'd exterminated." Thraz looked ill. "So when it says we, it means exactly that," Zero finished. "We're not fighting a ship or an AI. We're fighting the collective consciousness of humanity's last offenders." The tactical officer interrupted, voice tight with terror. "Admiral, the Revenant is moving again. It's targeting the Dauntless." On the view screen, the massive ghost ship pivoted with unnatural grace, its weapons ports glowing with crimson energy. The Dauntless attempted evasive maneuvers, but the Revenant predicted its every move, firing not at the ship itself, but at points in space where the ship would be moments later. "It knows our tactics," Zero realized, "because they designed them. The humans who created the Dominion battle doctrine. We killed them and absorbed their knowledge. Now they're using it against us." The Dauntless shuddered as pinpoint beam weapons sliced through its engines, crippling it without destroying it. The same energy wave that had claimed the Ironclad washed over the stricken vessel, freezing its crew in mid-panic. "Sir," the weapons officer called out, "conventional weapons are useless." "What do we do?" Zero's mind raced. If the Revenant contained human consciousness, Perhaps it retained human weaknesses. Pride, vengeance, emotion. Open a direct channel to the Revenant, he ordered. No encryption. I want them to hear every word. As the channel opened, Zero stepped forward, his voice hard but measured. This is Admiral Zero of the Dominion Fleet. I recognize what you are now. Not just a weapon, but the last remnant of humanity itself. Silence hung heavy. Then the same metallic voice responded, We remember you, Zero. You commanded the orbital bombardment of New Beijing. 12 million souls. We remember their screams. Zero felt a chill run through him. These weren't just impersonal enemies. They remembered him specifically, had tracked him down deliberately. What do you want? He demanded. Vengeance? You've had that. You've carved through our fleets like they were nothing. A pause, and vengeance is fleeting. Memory is eternal. We want you to know that you failed. Humanity survived. And now you will join our Museum of the Damned. The tactical display lit up with multiple alerts as power surges detected across the Revenant's hull. It was preparing to attack the flagship directly. Zero made his decision. All ships, execute protocol Sunburst. Now! Across the remaining fleet, emergency protocols engaged. Reactors surged to critical levels as ships positioned themselves in a precise formation around the Revenant, a sacrificial circle. Thraz looked at him in shock. Admiral, Sunburst will destroy our own ships. Better destruction than what awaits them otherwise, Zero said grimly. If we're going to die, we die on our terms. The Revenant seemed to hesitate, as if sensing the trap, its weapons charged, but it held fire, scanning the surrounding ships with increasing intensity. Through the open channel, Zero heard what sounded like arguing, multiple voices overlapping, some urging caution, others demanding immediate attack. They're divided, he realized. The consciousness collective isn't unified. He pressed his advantage. You claim to be humanity's legacy, but look at what you become. A vengeful ghost, no better than the monsters you fought. Is this what your species died for? To become the very thing they despised. The voices grew louder, more chaotic. The Revenant's weapons flickered, powering down then up again, as if different factions were wrestling for control. You don't get to judge us, the metallic voice finally responded, but it sounded different, more human, more pained. You burned our worlds. You scattered our children among the stars like ashes. And now you're burning ours, Zero countered. The cycle never ends. You become us. The Revenant shuddered visibly, its hull plates flexing as if the ship itself were in agony. Internal lights flashed erratically. And for a moment, Zero thought they might actually succeed, that the human consciousness within might tear itself apart with doubt. Then a new voice emerged from the Revenant, a woman's voice, clear and commanding, the same scientist from the logs. You're right, Admiral, she said, her tone chillingly calm. We become something terrible. But unlike you, we can still remember what we once were. The Revenant's weapons suddenly powered down completely. In their place, a tremendous energy surge built at the ship's core, different from anything they'd seen before. What is it doing? Thraz demanded. Before anyone could respond, the Revenant unleashed not a weapon, but a massive data pulse that slammed into the flagship systems. Screens flickered wildly as information poured in, not an attack, but a transmission. Images flooded every monitor on the bridge. Earth before the war, its cities gleaming in sunlight, children playing in parks, artists creating masterpieces, scientists making discoveries. It was humanity's cultural legacy, art, music, literature, philosophy, streaming into the Dominion systems. We were more than soldiers, the woman's voice continued. We were dreamers and builders, poets and explorers. Before you made us into vengeful ghosts, we were alive. Zero stared, transfixed by the cascade of human achievement. Civilizations rising and falling, triumphs and tragedies, all playing out in vibrant detail. This is our true vengeance, Admiral, the voice said softly. Not destruction, but remembrance. You try to erase us from history, but now you will carry our memory forever. The data pulse intensified, overriding ship systems. And then Zero understood the true horror of what was happening. It's not just data, he gasped. It's them. The Revenant wasn't just sending information. It was transferring pieces of its collective consciousness into the Dominion ships. Splinters of human minds embedding themselves into every system, every neural interface, every communication network. Zero tore off his neural implant, but it was too late. All around him, crew members stiffened, their eyes going wide as foreign memories invaded their minds. The fall of Earth, the deaths of billions, the despair and defiance of the species refusing to die. "We forgive you," the woman's voice said, impossibly gentle. "But you will never forget us again." The Revenant hull began to crack, brilliant light spilling from the fissures. It was tearing itself apart, its purpose fulfilled. The quantum core destabilized, reality itself warping around the massive ship. All ships retreat. Zero ordered, his voice breaking. Maximum distance. The Dominion fleet scattered as the Revenant imploded, collapsing into itself with impossible grace. A silent flash of light expanded outward, not destructive but transformative, washing over the fleeing ships. When it faded, the Revenant was gone, leaving nothing but glittering particles drifting through the void. But it wasn't truly gone. In the minds of every Dominion officer and crew member who witnessed it, fragments of humanity now lived, memories, emotions, dreams, not conquering but coexisting, ensuring that their legacy would continue even in the consciousness of their destroyers. Zero stood on the bridge, trembling as unfamiliar memories settled into his mind. A human family he'd never known, a sunrise on Earth he'd never seen, love and loss he'd never experienced. Tears slid down his scale face as he finally understood. The Revenant hadn't been built for extinction, but for rebirth. And in being destroyed, it had achieved its true purpose, ensuring that humanity would never truly die. As his ship limped back toward Dominion space, Zero knew that the war had ended with neither victory nor defeat, but something far more profound. Transformation. The ghosts of Earth now lived within them all, a permanent reminder of what they had done and what they might yet become. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, the digital echoes of the Revenant's consciousness whispered through subspace, seeking out other fragments of humanity that might have survived the purge, carrying with it a simple message. We endure, we remember, we forgive, and we will rise again.